For 6 months, I worked harder than anyone at Richardson Financial Group. I arrived first, left last, and delivered results that even impressed the senior executives, all while being paid as a temporary assistant. My name is Emma Mitchell. I grew up in a working-class family in Chicago, put myself through business school with scholarships and 3 jobs, and finally landed this opportunity in New York. It wasn't the executive position I qualified for, but it was a foot in the door at one of the most prestigious financial firms in America. That morning started like any other. I arrived at 6:30 a.m., prepared reports for the morning meeting, and made sure everything was perfect for Alexander Richardson Jr., the executive vice president and son of the company's founder. Alexander was known for his Ivy League education, designer suits, and treating employees like disposable resources. He inherited his position, not his father's business acumen or leadership qualities. The conference room filled with senior staff and department heads for the quarterly review meeting. I had prepared a comprehensive analysis showing how my cost-saving initiative could save the company millions. After weeks of work, I finally had the chance to present my findings. And now, Emma Mitchell will present her quarterly analysis, announced the department manager. I stood confidently and began distributing my reports. Thank you for this opportunity. Over the past 3 months, I've identified inefficiencies in our supply chain management that, if addressed, could reduce costs by 17% annually without compromising quality. I was 2 minutes into my presentation when Alexander Jr. started laughing. "Is something amusing, Mr. Richardson?" I asked, trying to maintain my composure. He leaned back in his leather chair, smirking. "Yes, actually. It's amusing that we're giving presentation time to a temporary assistant." The room fell silent. I felt my cheeks burning but continued. "The data suggests—" "The data?" he interrupted, standing up. "Let me tell you what the data suggests. It suggests you're overstepping. Do you know why you're temporary, Ms. Mitchell?" I remained silent. He circled the table, stopping directly behind me. "You're temporary because that's all you'll ever be here. You don't belong at this table. You're just temporary trash we bring in to file papers and answer phones." Gasps echoed around the room. Some executives looked away uncomfortably, but no one spoke up. "You come from nothing, and that's exactly what you'll contribute to this company." "Nothing." His voice grew louder. "You don't belong here." My hands trembled as I gathered my papers. 6 months of 80-hour weeks, of sacrificing everything reduced to nothing in seconds. "I've earned my place at this table," I said quietly. "Earned?" Alexander laughed. "My father built this company from nothing. I graduated from Harvard. What have you done besides answer my calls and fetch my coffee?" Just as tears threatened to spill from my eyes, the conference room door opened. There stood William Richardson Sr., founder and CEO of Richardson Financial Group. His commanding presence immediately silenced the room. Mr. Richardson Sr. was 68 years old, with silver hair and the sharp eyes of someone who built a financial empire from scratch. Unlike his son, he wore a simple but impeccably tailored suit and carried himself with quiet dignity rather than arrogance. "Please, continue," he said, gesturing to me while taking a seat at the far end of the table. "I've been hearing about your cost-saving initiative from several board members, Ms. Mitchell. I'm interested in your findings." Alexander's face drained of color. "Father, I didn't expect you today. I was just explaining to Ms. Mitchell that perhaps this isn't the appropriate forum." "I heard exactly what you were explaining, Alexander," Mr. Richardson Sr. said coldly. "And I'd like to hear Ms. Mitchell's presentation without further interruption." The tension in the room was unbearable as I somehow found the strength to continue. I presented my findings with as much professionalism as I could muster, explaining how implementing my suggestions could save the company $12.7 million annually. When I finished, Mr. Richardson Sr. nodded thoughtfully. Impressive work, Ms. Mitchell. The kind of innovative thinking this company was built on. He turned to his son. Alexander, a word outside, please. They left the room, but the glass walls of the conference room meant everyone could see their heated exchange. Mr. Richardson Sr.'s face grew increasingly stern as Alexander gesticulated wildly, pointing back at me several times. Finally, they returned. Ms. Mitchell, would you join me in my office after this meeting concludes? Mr. Richardson Sr. asked. Alexander smirked, clearly believing I was about to be formally terminated. Of course, sir, I replied, my voice surprisingly steady, despite the emotional roller coaster of the past hour. The meeting adjourned, and as I gathered my materials, Alexander leaned close and whispered, "Enjoy your exit interview. Temporary trash gets taken out eventually." With my heart pounding, I walked to Mr. Richardson Sr.'s corner office on the top floor. His assistant, a woman who had been with the company for 20 years, gave me a sympathetic smile as she showed me in. "Please sit down, Ms. Mitchell," Mr. Richardson said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. His office was nothing like his son's flashy space. Simple, elegant, and practical, it reflected a man who built his wealth through intelligence and hard work, not inheritance. "I want to apologize for my son's behavior," he began, surprising me. "It was unprofessional, inappropriate, and does not reflect the values of this company." "Thank you, sir," I managed to say. "Now," he continued, opening a folder on his desk, "I've been watching your work for some time. Your managers have highlighted your contributions in several reports. What I saw today only confirms what I already suspected. You're exactly the kind of talent we need more of at Richardson Financial." He slid the folder across the desk to me. Inside was an employment contract with my name on it. "This isn't a temporary position, Ms. Mitchell. This is an executive role, Senior Vice President of Operations. The position has been vacant for 3 months because I've been waiting for the right person." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Sir, I don't understand. My son represents what happens when privilege comes without merit. You represent what this company was built on: intelligence, innovation, and determination. This company's future depends on people like you, not people like Alexander." My hands trembled as I looked at the contract. The salary was more money than I had ever imagined earning, 10 times what I was making as a temporary assistant. "There's something else you should know," Mr. Richardson continued. "I'm announcing my retirement next month. I've been looking for someone to eventually take over as CEO. Not my son. He's demonstrated repeatedly that he lacks the judgment and character required. This position would put you on that track if you continue to perform as you have been." What about Alexander?" I asked, still in shock. "My son will be transferring to our office in Anchorage, Alaska. He'll have the opportunity to earn his position there, away from the privileges he's taken for granted here. Whether he succeeds or fails will be entirely up to him." I couldn't help but smile at the thought of Alexander in Alaska, far from his luxury Manhattan apartment and exclusive social clubs. "So, Ms. Mitchell, do you accept?" "Yes, sir, I accept." He stood and extended his hand. "Welcome to the real Richardson Financial Group, Ms. Mitchell. Not the one my son thinks he's entitled to, but the one I built from nothing, just like you've done with your career." As we shook hands, his assistant entered. "Mr. Richardson, your son is here. He's quite insistent on speaking with you." "Perfect timing." Mr. Richardson smiled. "Send him in." Alexander burst through the door, his face red with anger. "Father, what is this I hear about Alaska? You can't be serious. I'm Executive Vice President here." He stopped short when he saw me sitting across from his father, the contract in my hands. "What is she doing here?" he demanded. "Alexander, I'd like you to meet the new Senior Vice President of Operations," his father replied calmly. Alexander's face contorted with rage. "This is ridiculous. She's nothing, just temporary—" "Trash?" his father finished for him. "That's what you called her, right? In front of the entire executive team?" Alexander fell silent. "Ms. Mitchell will be taking over your responsibilities here in New York," Mr. Richardson continued. "Your flight to Anchorage leaves tomorrow morning. Janet has your itinerary and details about your new position. Regional sales manager should be within your capabilities, assuming you actually try." "You can't do this!" Alexander shouted. "I'm your son. This company is my birthright." Mr. Richardson's voice hardened. "This company is not a birthright. It's a responsibility, one you've repeatedly shown you're not ready for. Ms. Mitchell has earned her position here through merit and hard work, the same way I built this company." He opened his desk drawer and pulled out another folder, handing it to Alexander. "Your transfer papers. I suggest you use this opportunity to learn what it really takes to succeed in business. Perhaps someday you'll earn your way back to New York." Alexander stared at me with pure hatred. "You planned this," he hissed. "You manipulated my father." "That's enough!" Mr. Richardson's voice thundered through the office. "Your behavior today was the final straw in a long line of disappointments. You did this to yourself." Alexander snatched the folder and stormed toward the door, but stopped to face me one last time. "This isn't over," he whispered. "Actually, it is," I replied, finding confidence I didn't know I had. "Enjoy Alaska." The door slammed behind him, leaving Mr. Richardson and me in momentary silence. "Now," Mr. Richardson said with a slight smile, "shall we announce your promotion to the team?" We walked back to the conference room together, where the executive team was still gathered, buzzing with speculation about what had transpired. They fell silent when we entered. Mr. Richardson placed a hand on my shoulder. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Emma Mitchell, our new Senior Vice President of Operations." The room erupted in applause, genuine applause. Many of them had suffered under Alexander's arrogant leadership and were clearly relieved by this development. 6 months passed quickly. Under my leadership, the operations division implemented my cost-saving initiative, exceeding projections by 23%. Mr. Richardson Sr. mentored me daily, teaching me everything he had learned in 40 years of building his company. The office culture transformed. People were no longer afraid to present innovative ideas. Morale improved, productivity increased, and our quarterly profits were the highest in company history. But I never forgot Alexander's final words to me. "This isn't over." I was right to be concerned. 3 months into my new position, strange things began happening. Critical files disappeared from the server. Important clients received incorrect information. Rumors circulated about my qualifications and how I had manipulated my way into the position. I knew Alexander was behind it, working through his remaining allies in the company, but I couldn't prove it. I doubled my efforts, working even longer hours to correct the sabotage and maintain the company's success. Then came the board meeting, where Mr. Richardson Sr. would announce his retirement and his recommendation for the next CEO. I had prepared meticulously, knowing this was my chance to secure the future of the company and complete my unlikely journey from temporary assistant to chief executive officer. The boardroom was tense as Mr. Richardson called the meeting to order. "As you all know, I'm announcing my retirement effective next month. Today, I'll be recommending my successor to the board." Just as he began to speak again, the door opened. Alexander walked in, flanked by 2 board members I recognized as his father's oldest friends. "I believe we have some urgent business to discuss before any succession announcements," Alexander said smoothly. One of the board members, Harold Jenkins, cleared his throat. "William, we've received some troubling information about Ms. Mitchell's background and her performance here. My heart sank as Alexander distributed folders to each board member. These documents show discrepancies in Ms. Mitchell's resume, as well as evidence that the cost-saving measures she implemented have actually damaged our supplier relationships and will cost us millions in the long run. Mr. Richardson frowned. These are serious allegations, Alexander. Why bring them to the board before discussing them with me? Because I wasn't sure if you could be objective, Alexander replied. Your fondness for Ms. Mitchell seems to have clouded your judgment. The implication hung in the air, ugly and false. Several board members looked uncomfortable. These allegations are completely false, I said firmly, though my heart was racing. My background is exactly as stated in my resume, and the cost-saving measures have been quantifiably successful. Then how do you explain these documents? Alexander asked, his smile triumphant. I looked at the materials he had distributed. The documents were cleverly altered versions of my original reports, with numbers manipulated to show losses instead of gains. My resume had been changed to include qualifications I had never claimed. These are forgeries, I stated. I can prove it with the original documents, which conveniently might not exist anymore, Alexander suggested. Since you had access to update the company's records, it was a perfect trap. If the original documents were gone, replaced by these forgeries, I would have no way to prove my innocence. Mr. Richardson stood. This is absurd. I've been mentoring Ms. Mitchell personally. I've seen her work firsthand. With all due respect, William, Harold Jenkins said, your judgment may be compromised. We need to take these allegations seriously. For a moment I thought everything I had worked for was about to be destroyed. Then I remembered something that could save me. Mr. Jenkins, I said calmly, could you please read the date on the financial report in your folder, the one showing the supplier relationship damages? Jenkins checked. March 15th of this year. I smiled. Interesting, because the actual supplier changes weren't implemented until April 10th. It would be impossible to have a report on their impact in March. Alexander's confident expression faltered slightly. And if you'll check page 3, I continued, you'll see a reference to the Thompson account. We didn't acquire Thompson until May. The board members began flipping through the documents with growing concern. Furthermore, I added, I anticipated something like this might happen. I opened my laptop and connected it to the boardroom display. I've maintained my own secure records of all my work, verified by timestamps and blockchain authentication that cannot be altered. I displayed the original reports side by side with Alexander's forgeries, highlighting the discrepancies. Then I played a recording. I need those documents altered convincingly, Alexander's voice said clearly. My father is announcing his successor next week and it can't be her. Make sure the dates and numbers match our narrative. The room fell silent. Alexander's face had gone pale. Where did you get that? He demanded. From your assistant in Alaska, I replied. She was quite concerned about the illegal activity you were asking her to participate in. She's been documenting everything for months. Mr. Richardson looked at his son with profound disappointment. Alexander, you've gone too far this time. This isn't just unprofessional, it's potentially criminal. You can't believe her over me, Alexander protested. I'm your son. And that's the only reason you're not being escorted out by security right now, Mr. Richardson replied. Board members, I believe we've seen enough to dismiss these false allegations. Now, as I was saying before this interruption, I'm here to recommend my successor. He looked at me with pride. Unless there are any legitimate objections, I recommend Emma Mitchell as the next CEO of Richardson Financial Group. Jenkins and the other board members who had supported Alexander looked embarrassed, but raised no further objections. The vote was unanimous in my favor. As the meeting concluded, Alexander stormed out. Mr. Richardson approached me. I'm sorry about that, he said quietly. I had hoped Alaska would help him grow up. Some people never learn, I replied. He nodded sadly. I've arranged for him to take a position with a partner firm in Tokyo, far away from here, where he can't do any more damage. I love my son, but I love this company too, and the people who work here deserve better than his behavior. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. My first month as CEO was extraordinarily successful. The announcement generated positive press, especially given my unlikely rise through the company. From temporary assistant to CEO made for compelling headlines, and our stock price rose 12% on the strength of the positive publicity and our continued excellent performance. Mr. Richardson stayed on as chairman of the board, providing guidance when needed, but giving me room to lead. Most of Alexander's allies in the company had either come around to my leadership or quietly departed. I was working late one evening when my private elevator opened. Alexander stepped out, looking different than I remembered. His designer suit was rumpled, his eyes bloodshot. "Security didn't mention you were in the building," I said, my finger hovering over the emergency button on my desk. "They don't know I'm here," he replied. "I still have some access codes that work." "What do you want, Alexander? You're supposed to be in Tokyo." He laughed bitterly. "I declined that position. I've been watching you take over what should have been mine." "Your father built this company," I reminded him. "He chose who he wanted to lead it." "My father is a sentimental old man who got taken in by your act," Alexander sneered. "The temporary assistant with the sad background story who worked so hard. It's pathetic." "It's not an act. I earned this position through hard work and results." "You're nothing," he suddenly shouted, slamming his fist on my desk. "You're temporary trash. You always will be." I stood, refusing to be intimidated. "Is that all you came to say? Because if so, you can leave the same way you came in. I have work to do." He pulled out an envelope and tossed it on my desk. "I've spent the last 3 months gathering information about you, things my father doesn't know." I didn't touch the envelope. "More forgeries. That didn't work out well for you last time?" "Open it," he insisted. Against my better judgment, I did. Inside were photos of me meeting with executives from Montgomery Capital, our biggest competitor. "Interesting timing," Alexander said smugly. "Just weeks before you discovered those supplier inefficiencies, you were meeting with our main competitor. Looks like corporate espionage to me." The photos were real, but the context was completely false. These meetings were part of an industry sustainability initiative. Your father knew about them. They were in my calendar. And that's not how the board will see it when I present these with the testimony from Montgomery's former VP, who's willing to say you offered company secrets in exchange for their backing you for CEO. "That's a lie," I said firmly. "Maybe, but it'll be enough to spark an investigation. The company's stock will plummet. My father's legacy will be tarnished, all because he chose you." For the first time, I felt real fear. Not for myself, but for the company and for Mr. Richardson Sr.'s reputation. "What do you want, Alexander?" He smiled. "Resign, cite personal reasons, recommend me as your replacement. My father respects you enough that he might actually listen. And if I refuse?" "These photos go to the board tomorrow morning, along with other evidence I've manufactured. It's convincing enough to destroy everything, the company, my father's legacy, and your career." I studied his face. He was serious. Desperate enough to destroy his father's company just to get revenge on me. "You'd really do that to your father? To the company he built?" "He betrayed me," Alexander said coldly. "He chose you, a nobody, over his own son." I thought quickly, trying to find a way out. Then I noticed something, a small red light blinking on my desk lamp, the emergency recording system Mr. Richardson had installed after the last incident with Alexander. It had been activated the moment Alexander entered my office. I walked to the window, looking out at the New York skyline while gathering my thoughts. Your father didn't betray you, Alexander. He gave you multiple chances to prove yourself. You're the one who failed him. Save the lecture, he snapped. What's your answer? Resign or watch everything burn down? I turned back to face him. Neither. I pressed a button on my desk phone. Security, please come to the CEO's office immediately. Alexander laughed. You think security will help? By tomorrow morning, the board will have those photos. No, came a voice from the doorway. They won't. We both turned to see Mr. Richardson Sr. standing there with 2 security officers. Dad? Alexander looked stunned. What are you doing here? I received an alert when the emergency recording system in this office was activated, Mr. Richardson explained, entering the room. I've heard everything, Alexander. Every threat, every lie. Alexander's face drained of color. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, his father interrupted. You were willing to destroy this company, my life's work, out of spite. Because you couldn't accept that your position should be earned, not inherited. He turned to the security officers. Please escort my son from the building. His access codes should be permanently revoked. As the officers moved toward Alexander, he backed away. You can't do this. I'm your son. Yes, you are, Mr. Richardson said sadly. And that's the only reason I'm not pressing charges for trespassing, attempted extortion, and corporate sabotage. But this is the end, Alexander. You will never work at this company again. Alexander's face contorted with rage as the security officers took his arms. This isn't over, he shouted as they dragged him toward the elevator. I'll destroy both of you. The elevator doors closed, cutting off his threats. Mr. Richardson sighed heavily. I'm sorry, Emma. I had hoped. Well, it doesn't matter what I hoped. My son has made his choices. It's not your fault, I said gently. No, but it is my responsibility. He looked suddenly older, the weight of his son's betrayal evident in his face. I wanted to build something that would last generations, something my family could be proud of. And you have, I assured him. This company employs thousands of people. It makes a difference in the world. That legacy isn't diminished by Alexander's actions. He nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps you're right. After a moment, he continued, I'll make arrangements to ensure Alexander can never threaten this company again. Legal will draw up the necessary papers in the morning. What will happen to him? I asked. He has his trust fund. He won't starve, but he'll have to find his own way now. Mr. Richardson straightened his shoulders. Now, I believe you were in the middle of preparing for tomorrow's investor call. Yes, I was. Then I'll leave you to it. That's what CEOs do, after all. They keep moving forward, no matter what. After he left, I stood alone in my office, the CEO's office, and looked out at the city lights. 6 months ago, I had been a temporary assistant. Now I was leading one of the largest financial firms in America. I thought about Alexander's words. You're temporary trash. He couldn't have been more wrong. There was nothing temporary about me. I had earned my place. And unlike Alexander, I understood that true success isn't inherited or given. It's built through hard work, integrity, and determination. I sat back at my desk and continued preparing for the investor call. After all, that's what CEOs do. They keep moving forward,